There, this is the FD Investment Group podcast. This is Sarkis. I'm a marketing graduate from Cal State Northridge. Joined today by my two of the hosts, Peter and Michael. Michael?
Yes, thank you, Sarkis. I am a financial analysis and theoretical economics study. Pretty much looking into a lot of stock market stuff. I enjoy theory, whatnot. Yeah, we're just gonna shoot the shit. And Peter?
And my name is Peter, and I have no financial background. I'm a mechanical engineering student who's just been an avid trader and investor for quite some time now, and yeah.
See, he's the prime example that you don't have to have a financial background to be in finance.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Actually, so this podcast is basically mostly going to be us talking about various different business and kind of financial news that's going on today, different investments that we think are kind of interesting, cool prospects. We are in no way, licensed brokers or financial advisors. If you invest in anything, that is completely on you. Be responsible with your money.
Consider us a Reddit subthread.
Yeah. We're just gonna be talking shit and just kind of being silly and So I guess that's our intro. So if anyone wants to start it off or anything they want to talk about,
Peter's got the list.
I'm gonna start from the bottom of my list here. I want to start off with Apple.
All right.
So Apple's had a lot of bad PR recently, and it's interesting where they're headed, because for a long time Apple was the leader in technology where they would set the pace that others would follow. They were the trendsetters.
Yeah.
And as of recent, it's not so much been the case, because you'd see things like the notch in the iPhone that everyone is actually trying to go out of their way to avoid, and then companies like Samsung, who have no idea how to avoid it, will just copy it blatantly, point blank, without any sort of attempt at creating their own trend or doing it their own way. You see them getting rid of the 3.5mm headphone jack in their iPhone, and then Samsung follows suit. The Note was the last of this, the last generation of great phones to still have the 3.5mm headphone jack, and you see rumors coming out that they're probably going to follow suit and get rid of it too, which is a huge disappointment.
On the 10 that's coming out?
On the new phone, on the new Note, yeah. They're just rumors so far, but I mean, these rumors tend to be pretty accurate over time. But there's actually a lot of things happening with Apple, not just their iPhones. Recently, some of their MacBooks have been catching fire, and they have finally, for the first time in ages, issued a voluntary recall where you can get your MacBooks returned or replaced, and it'll take up to 2 weeks to replace. There's been, there's the bad PR with the stand, the $1,000 stand. There's pictures going around of people. They're the $1,000 stand for the new iMac or the new Mac Pro.
So the Mac Pro is basically the professional version of the desktop that Apple provides, and they recently announced a new edition or new version that they're making, but they're selling the stand separate, and it's $1,000.
Yeah. So it's another one of those overpriced accessories that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's multiple things in there. They have the computer, which is astonishingly expensive, but it's not overpriced. It's just expensive because of the hardware that goes in it. It's not necessarily a consumer grade computer anymore. It's more for video creation, or when you're putting your computer through the paces like CAD-based design and whenever you need a powerful computer, that's what it's there for.
Right.
But it doesn't even include a stand. You have the option of getting a $200 vase mount, and that already is a joke, because a standard vase mount, you can buy it on Amazon or Newegg for $20 to $40, $50 to $70 for a good vase mount, $100 for a really expensive vase mount arm, which is adjustable, and you can move it in any direction, twist and turn it, and huge amounts of adjustability, and they're coming from reputable companies at this point with lots of reviews, and they're great stands. And then you have a $200 vase mount, or you have the $1,000 stand, and that's ridiculous. So in addition to this ridiculous stand and PR fiasco, they're falling behind in other network sectors as well. They claim that 5G isn't ready yet, and they won't roll out 5G into the next iPhone until the next year.
Oh, they're
You
going
won't
to be
see that.
behind.
Yeah, you won't
really
see that.
behind.
You won't see that until 2020.
Oh,
Whereas, Samsung is already releasing their
mm-hmm.
Galaxy lineup and Note lineup with 5G this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other bigger companies. Then, in addition to this, not just the 5G, you have the Chinese trade war, which could possibly be the death of the iPhone 11.
I saw the article, the founder of Foxconn.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. That's
Foxconn,
interesting.
one of the largest electronics manufacturers, the largest electronics manufacturer in the world. I think somewhere in 2012 or 2013 it said that they produced 40% of all the electronics in the world.
What the hell?
Period.
Wow.
And the Foxconn is urging Amazon to move their manufacturing out of China.
Well, I mean, it's
Taiwan, correct?
Out of no, well, so there's a number of places that they can move to. They can move to anywhere in Southeast Asia. They can move to India. They can move to Mexico. But
Well, specifically, the founder himself is saying move to Taiwan, or I'm urging Apple to move to Taiwan. Said Terry Gao, the largest shareholder in Honai Precision Industry Co., answering the question about whether Apple will ship production away from China. I think it's very possible, he said, without elaborating.
So they're
Makes
mostly kicking Apple out because of the Chinese trade war. There is a massive campaign in China where people are ditching their iPhones for domestic Huawei phones over their competitor, and it's a big deal. Foxconn is urging them to move out. Apple themselves are claiming that tariffs could reduce their impact on the economy. I think that's a really interesting ploy because Apple's just trying to save themselves. Their impact on the economy, what's their impact? They're money hoarders.
Well, it's true, but I mean, we also have to look at the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, America is not manufacturing anymore, but we're a service-based economy now. So, I mean, what we're housing are now executives, those types of folks from Apple. So sure, they're not a cornerstone in terms of low, middle income. But when it comes to high income or maybe middle high income earners, that's kind of a big portion of.
I genuinely believe. Sorry for cutting up. I genuinely believe that if Apple takes a big hit, that money's just going to go elsewhere.
I mean, it's a chain reaction, though. It's anyone who has open contracts with Apple and it reacts to those contracts. I mean, that could lead to a huge chain reaction with anyone trying to do business with Apple.
I don't see Apple being such a large portion of our economy that it makes that much of a difference. I think that if the iPhones get too expensive, if they have to move their manufacturing factories elsewhere, and the tariffs raise their prices on the cost of the iPhone, people are just going to stop buying iPhones. They're just going to hold on to their older iPhones for longer and longer, and they're going to do whatever it is they can to make them last longer, swapping batteries, fixing screens, and so on, and just hold on to their tech. No one wants to buy a $1,200 iPhone every year. It's too expensive.
You know what, though? We thought the exact same thing when Apple was the first to hit the $1,000 phone cutoff mark.
And guess what?
And people still bought it.
People bought
it. It went down. There was a decline, but it was
the lowest selling iPhone.
But they still made money.
In years.
That's what matters, though.
They're going to keep making money because their profit margins are massive. They're huge.
Massive, yeah.
There's I think it's like an average of 12% more profit margin than the industry average.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure it's higher than that. Granted, they're making what?
That's just higher than the average.
$50, $100 phones.
Yeah. Well, no. Cost of manufacture is probably somewhere in the $250 to $300 range.
I'm saying without transit. Remove transit manufacturing alone. I would say it's like a $100, $150 device.
I mean,
and then transit, of course, increases.
You have to consider everything. You can't not consider transit.
You can't
transit
make
from Mexico
and then not bring it to where you're going to sell the customer.
Transit from Mexico and transit from China, you're still paying for transit. So
I'm just talking about like a market value. Like we're not trying to count in the variable cost.
Market value?
Yeah, market value. It's a very cheap phone. Yeah, it's a very.
They're
cheap
selling
phone.
it for easily 70% over what it is that they actually spend.
Yeah.
And that's just going to increase. And with the new tariffs, they're not necessarily going to increase their prices proportionally because that doesn't happen. You have a 5% tariff, they increase their prices 15% to accommodate.
Yeah.
What's the point? I mean, they'll make more money, but then less people will buy them and it'll offset it. And ultimately, if enough people are off-turned by this, I think phones and other necessities that people have grown to use on a day-to-day basis have far exceeded the value that they're worth to the common people. Meaning, I think their value have far exceeded the rate of inflation that people's money can't keep up with the cost that Apple is asking for anymore.
Well, that's an excellent note, because there's a lot of different things now in the country that is a huge mix to that problem. The cost of living is going up.
Say the average schmuck makes, I don't know, $30,000 a year, working some factory job in, I don't know, one of the random states in the U.S. somewhere.
You don't live in California with
that.
Now
Apple wants them to spend between 1/30th and 1/15th what they make in a year on a phone. It's not a car, it's not a house, it's not your water, it's not your food, it's not your gas, it's none of that. It's not the floor or the bed that you sleep on or the floor that you walk on. No, it's not the heat or the electricity or the cold or whatever. It's a goddamn phone, and they want you to spend that much money on it. It's getting to the point where it's absurd.
Well, the cost-benefit comparison between having the most recent phone and, of course, among low income and even middle income today, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to go with the newest phone now. You'd much rather hold onto a phone for 5 years and just hope you don't obliterate it, just hope you don't damage it in any way, and of course get a warranty on it so that it lasts the full 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you're good. You don't have to buy the newest shit until it comes out.
What's to say that I shouldn't just buy the new Google Pixel 3a for $300, $350? That more than fair enough does everything I ask of it.
Yeah.
And is completely modern and does, it's a fantastic phone with a fantastic price proposition. And the coolest thing about it is, listen, it doesn't have last gen hardware. It goes on the internet, it goes on every website, it plays every video, top spec. It has a fantastic screen that'll last you a long time. It's scratch resistant, just about everything you could ask for. It has a 3.5mm headphone jack, and that's still a big deal.
It's a very big deal.
It's at least the 3A, if I remember correctly, is a notchless design. So, fantastic job for Google for producing a product like this and hitting the market right where it needed it most.
Though, I agree, Mark. Google's definitely penetrating into what is really a monopolistic market between Samsung and Apple, and I would argue even more on Apple's fence, because most people are Apple users compared to Samsung and / other phones. But I think Google came in at a really good time, because, like you were saying, Apple's going to have this huge shift, and during that huge shift, you're going to see a huge portion of the market enter this captivation zone, where companies like Samsung and if Huawei ever comes back, and then Google will have enough time to really start capturing those sectors, those groups of people, and Apple's going to start losing market share over time.
I really hope that blind loyalty subsides and people start to see that Apple is just taking advantage of the not uninformed.
I wish I could say that is hopefully where we would go, but if that were the case, it should have happened like 2 years ago. But people really stayed blind to
there's also a whole factor of Apple is really good at creating a very good ecosystem of devices that correspond well with one another, and they all synergize, use the same services, and all if you have an Apple laptop, it works with your Apple phone, that works with your freaking Apple TV, and all together it works all really well together. And the harder they make it to switch from one device from Apple to an Android, the less likely it is that those customers are going to be shaken out during any sort of a disturbance or rise in price or whatever.
Well, that I was literally just talking about this with someone a couple days ago, and they were like, yeah, the reason I use Apple is because and I guessed, right? I was like, oh, you like it because, let me guess, you have a MacBook, you have an iPad perhaps, maybe even an Apple TV if you got the most updated shit. And she's like, yeah, I got all those. And it's because, you got the phone, boom, all those things are already hooked up all together. And I think, honestly, that is one of the biggest drivers that Apple has under their belt, is the fact that for people who are not techie, who don't understand how to, set those things up themselves, because you can do it on Android.
Yeah.
You can do it. It's a pain in the ass, but you can do it.
It's simpler and easier to use.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say it's any more difficult than Android, but credit where credit is due. Apple has designed a very intricately designed but easy to operate ecosystem that works well with itself. So because everything can communicate well with everything else, their ecosystem is what sets them apart from every other company.
Right.
So
my mom can use it with no problem.
Yeah, it's easy. It's fantastic.
My grandma has it.
Yeah. You want to control your TV with your phone. It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
If you have a Samsung Smart TV and a Samsung Galaxy phone, it's a little more complicated. There's a little more steps to setting up and figuring it out. And then once you have it connected, I've used it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's glitchy. I think there's issues that don't work. I can't even turn on my own TV with my phone, and I thought that was one of the biggest selling points of I think it was the Smart Things app, where you could just flip on your TV with your phone and then start going through it. I have to find the remote to turn it on because my TV doesn't even have a button anymore. So I have to find the remote, turn it on, then I can use my phone once it's connected. My TV isn't connected to Wi-Fi, it's connected through an Ethernet cable. You'd think it'd be constant.
Yeah.
It's not, that's the issue. But, I mean, this is just a random little issue that I have. There's a lot of these problems with other ecosystems and other companies that have tried to do what Apple has done. Yeah, that sets them apart, but I can't justify the 30% premium.
Oh, of course not.
And the absurd price tags and the massive asking price of premium quality, because everyone is producing premium quality at this point.
Well, bear in mind, right? This us right here, right? We're in the era where we grew up with tech. We kind of understand at least the basics of it. But even then, you have to also look at the majority of our generation. Think about the everyday people you interact with, and why they will not convert to an Android-based phone is because they claim Apple is that much more simpler. Whether or not it be true, their marketing has been so successful in penetrating this niche corner where they're like, Android's so complicated. Instead of having steps 1 through 3, they have steps 1 through 5. I know it's only 2 more steps, but hey, we cut those 2 steps out. Even whether, like I said, whether it be true or not.
Do you remember
that's how they captivate all their market shares.
Do you remember the old Apple marketing campaign where you'd see TV, advertisements on TV where you have the Apple versus PC.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have the old guy that kind of was reminiscent of Bill Gates, and he was just like an idiot. And then you had the younger guy who said, "Oh, I have a problem for that. Or I have a solution for that. No problem. Mm-hmm. Oh, it seems like you're infected. Yeah, I don't get those problems." Yeah. And there's like, you hear things of my Apple, my Mac is much safer. It doesn't get viruses. I don't have to worry about that kind of issue. That's a total lie. And people continuously believe this, and it's a complete outright lie. The concept that a Mac is safer than a PC is horseshit. Put it simply, you have to consider market share in the world. PCs are comprised of, the percentage of PCs to Macs is astonishing. Macs don't even come close. Worldwide. Globally, PCs destroy Mac significantly. Now you have to consider the kind of people that make these viruses and malware and things that will fish for information and other issues like that. It has to be made specifically for the software that it's going to attack. So most people will naturally make something to fight against a PC because you have a much larger market that you're going after, a lot more people to fight.
Well, that and major companies don't use Macs for their operations, and it's all PCs. I mean, you go into my office, everything's a PC. We don't use Apple.
No one uses.
There's a specific reason. There's a very specific reason. I mean, when it comes to managing and organizing drives and data, it's far more easier to design your own type of storage scheme in a PC than it is with a Mac. A Mac, you can't do multi-layering, and you also can't do a horizontal integrated data file system. You can't do that on a Mac. You can only do that on a PC because the system is a lot more open to allow you to build that own storage scheme. which is what my company uses.
It's interesting that you mention that because it's for this specific reason that most of the world uses PC over Mac. And it's for that specific reason that people will go after PCs over Mac. There's just more information to go after. There's more to gain.
Heck yeah.
So people don't make viruses or malware for Mac.
Yeah,
so
what do you
Macs
do?
don't
Steal
get
my music?
affected.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Macs don't get affected by this.
Oh,
So
right.
their marketing scheme is rather it's a lie.
Buy us because we're so simple that no one wants to target us.
So, another pressing question right now. I gotta ask you guys: Pinot Noir or Chardonnay?
Which one have we eaten or drank already?
We drank Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, by the way, if you're listening right now, on top of just talking, we're drinking wine and eating food. So yeah, we're gonna be getting a little toasted as we go on through the.
That's the best way to talk about finances.
Yeah, exactly. You can never do this sober, otherwise you'll get too pissed off and rage at the companies that really just show some distaste.
I'm feeling Pinot Noir. How about you?
I'm okay with anything.
Pour it up.
All right. Bird up.
You know, bird up.
Bird up.
Eric Andre in the house.
Yep.
What's it? A company though that does not disappoint. And I talked about this last week too, before we started the podcast. And you already know what I'm going to say. You already know who I'm going to mention.
Let's hear it.
Any guesses to who I'm going to mention? I only talk about this company every time we talk about stocks.
Oh, are you gonna talk about Waste
Tesla?
Management?
Oh, Waste Management. No, I'm not going
Waste
to talk about
Management.
Tesla. No, get out of here with that shit. I'm not talking about Tesla.
Tesla.
No, I'm talking about Waste Management, man.
Yeah.
And Beyond Meat. I do like
And
Beyond Meat.
Beyond's pretty cool.
Sarkis made an excellent. He was tracking that ever since their IPO even came out, right?
Yeah.
And I know Peter's a little more ambivalent about the stock, or at least last week you were a
You know
little
what?
more.
I'm looking into it, and I'm not totally disapproving like I did a week ago.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. Now,
So-
I agree with some of your concerns, but Beyond Meat definitely seems more promising than what we've seen with other like food or food industry company. You know,
I noticed that when you evaluate a company, there's a lot of things you have to take into account, like trade secrets or tooling or property, value management, like how they partnerships is a big deal.
Yeah.
You value a company based on the partnerships, the people that are willing to work with them and support them. And Beyond Meat lacks a lot of those. But where they lack things, they make up for in other sectors. Partnerships are big. This company, I don't know how long this company's been around. Their IPO was super recent. They just went public, and
they're
all
only
of a sudden
a week and a half year old, right?
For
Beyond Meat, they're only a week and a half to 2 weeks.
no, for the IPO, it's been like a month.
It's been about a month
now,
I think.
man.
Yeah, it's been a month.
I haven't been following them very
the company
actively.
itself. I remember hearing about them. First hearing about them, I want to say 2-3 years ago, something like that. When I started to hear about these meat substitutes that kind of bleed like meat and all that. And at first I thought it was just kind of a gimmicky thing, you know. But then I just started to hear more and more about them in the news, and then
that was Beyond Meat that was starting all that? Because I remember hearing about that.
It
because
was
I
either
didn't know
Beyond
this.
Meat or Impossible Burger that
Oh,
made
okay.
like the bleeding burger thing.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's their main competitors, Impossible Meats, and then just started to hear about them more in the news, and then you started to hear about partnerships, about like fast food chains partnering with these companies to make like vegan, vegetarian versions of some of their foods. And then I heard about the IPO that was going to happen, so that kind of really caught my eye. I was like, oh, they're actually going public. And
Well, you guys hear the radio advert for Del Taco now, right? The 100%. I tried that, and I'll tell you, like and I tried the Beyond Meat at Carl's Jr. as well, and I'll tell you, it could just be because they put a lot of salt in it, because if you put a lot of salt in anything, hell, you can't taste it. But you know what? It did taste like meat. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I ate the burger, and I'm personally one to just really not like vegetarian or vegan options very much, because I did have a vegan burger about 1.5 years ago at some small cafe, and that shit tasted awful. And if you've had vegan cheese, I'm so sorry. That shit tastes like
God.
you could have gotten crude oil, and just found a way to solidify it and pop it on my sandwich, and that's what we did. But yeah, I'll tell you. It was disgusting. But I'll tell you, like, when it comes to Beyond Meat, even though it's not actual meat, it's really freaking good, dude. So really good.
I think the partnerships is one of the biggest things. They have two things that are strong that's going for them. Is they trade secret, which is their recipe. I mean, without the recipe, this just wouldn't be a company flat out.
Right.
Yeah. Three things. Their recipe, the fact that they have a market, the sheer amount of people trying to go vegetarian here in Southern California alone is astonishing.
I guess that's true. A lot of people who might be listening don't know that we're in California.
Yeah, so we're in Southern California. We're surrounded by liberals and vegetarians and hipsters trying to do green things, and most of it doesn't matter, but whatever makes you feel important. And so Beyond is one of those things where they think they're saving the earth and they want to not eat meat, or for whatever reason,
well,
health concerns or something else. Not my business, but Beyond has a market, and it's growing ever so massively that they've become a multi-billion-dollar company in a very short period of time.
Absolutely.
And all they really had going for them was a recipe and some really good businessmen who found a lot of investors and who took the company public and found partners, and that's one of the biggest things was the partnerships. The fact that they're in major fast food chains so quickly, that's crucial. They're in Del Taco and they're in Carl's Jr. and they're selling millions of tacos. I think they sold, I read an article that they said they sold over 2 million tacos since their ever so recent Del Taco release.
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's amazing. Yeah. That's insane.
And I mean, if you look at future growth, right? We live in Southern California. We have a ton of people who are going to be having these like vegan, vegetarian trends. Even people who don't, who are like me, who are like, oh, I just want to try it. I just want to see how it tastes. I think what they're doing is they're introducing this niche market now that we don't really see any other companies doing it. I mean, Impossible Meat or whatever it was, Impossible Burger, we don't see them in grocery stores. We don't see them in Del Taco or Carl's Jr. And what this does is creating external value. Sure, they might not be valuable right now or inside their own company, but the value, like you said, lies in the partnerships. And what we're going to see is because Del Taco and Carl's Jr. have it, we got to think about their competitors. Their competitors are going to be like, oh my god, maybe they're making more sales because they introduced this new line. They're going to be voyeuring for the new partnerships with Beyond Meat.
We got to jump on board, yeah.
Exactly. And so Beyond Meat's just going to be this rippling effect. And like Sarkis said last week, if only we had more capital, I'd buy Beyond Meat to the next generation.
I wonder. Hold on, I have an idea. So Beyond Meat is becoming this sort of new trendy thing, healthy food made out of vegetables and whatnot, and it's not super bad for you. Or soy, whatever it is, and it's supposed to be good for you, but not have meat. And I'm thinking about McDonald's, who in the last couple of years have really tried to change their image to a slightly more upscale restaurant.
Oh, you're right.
Look at a little bit fancier.
More of a cafe.
The McCafe type thing where they sell coffees and other stuff, right? McDonald's has really done a lot to try and change their image and the way they're perceived by young people in the current generation. Now, I think Beyond Meat might be an amazing time to buy it, because what if you start to see restaurants like McDonald's start to pick up partnerships with Beyond Meat? How this could affect, they could go global if companies like McDonald's pick up on this. And I feel like their image is it goes right along the lines with what Beyond Meat's market looks for in a restaurant, in a business where they want to dine. Even for the people who don't want to dine upscale, they still want vegetarian food. They go somewhere cheap. Hey, McDonald's has that Beyond Burger now. I'm down to give it a try.
Well, that's the only reason I went to Carl's Jr. and Del Taco. Like, I actually hunted down a Del Taco because there's none in my city. When I got off work in Century City, I was like, you know what? While I'm down here, let me find a Del Taco. And keep in mind, I've never eaten at Del Taco before. Maybe once in 2 years ago?
Yeah.
But because of Beyond Meat, I was like, you know what? I'll try it. And they got me to buy. I mean, that's a pretty good marketing scheme. Yeah. Even if I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, I was like, I'm going to go out of my way.
Because you see it's so meat-like. You're like, I wonder how that tastes. I wonder how...
Right. Yeah. Because you don't believe it. You're like, there's no way I could just get some tofu and be like, this is gonna taste like meat. It's gonna bleed red like meat.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. How do you do that? But they
I'm a carnivore, but I've considered it. I'm probably gonna try it at some point too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just a temporary trend where I try it once and that's it, or if I like it so much I want to keep eating it. But listen, companies like Jack in the Box, they sell their tacos. They don't advertise them as beef tacos. It's some sort of soy or something that they put in those tacos.
Yeah.
It was $2 for $1. And it's a great deal.
I didn't know that.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
I love their tacos.
I eat their tacos all the time. You didn't even know that.
No, I didn't.
That's the perfect perspective right there. Is you had no idea and you still order their tacos.
You're kidding.
And I do the same thing. And I knew that they weren't meat, but I like them. They're really
delicious.
good. So I keep ordering them. That's where Beyond is gonna. They're gonna strive, I think.
So another thing that I kind of want to add, in terms of when it started, so the company's Beyond Meat's product launched across America in 2013. In May 2016, it said released the first ever plant-based burger sold in the meat section of the grocery store, and I've seen these actually in my own grocery store in Ralph's, where they will sell it near the meat section. So.
Put it in the meat section.
Yeah, well, it's fairly new.
Meat in the meat section.
It was officially founded like 2009, so it's 10 years old. It's not too. It's pretty young of a company.
Well, probably because they had to come together
and
build
R&D
it,
for
and then
several
R&D.
years.
Yeah, it's like
so
pharmaceutical.
Like 4 years.
I thought they were a much newer company. If they've been around since 2009, that's actually pretty established. I wouldn't call them a staple in the food industry that they've been around for so long, but 10 years is enough time to get around, make some partnerships, get a good recipe, and
That's probably why they're valued so high. Is possible. Because of their length in the market.
This is something actually really interesting I didn't know about. So started up in 2009. It received venture funding from people like Bill Gates, the Humane Society, Tyson Meats.
Invested in them?
Yes, venture capital from them.
Tyson.
The
company that got that huge video that slandered them across the wall about their whole chicken processing. You didn't see that video?
No.
Oh yeah, I mean it was probably from like PETA or something, like breaking into I don't know, one of their videos. But yeah, it's like, I understand these meat processing facilities are just absolutely horrendous, and if you're an animal lover, I get it. You don't want to see it. But yeah, Tyson got hit huge. Because they went like on an insiders to like a chicken processing facility, and I wasn't expecting it to look nice. It's not Disneyland. Like I get it. Like we're there to kill chickens, and everyone was freaking out about it. And Tyson got really fucked, big time fucked. Yeah, but that's why I'm so surprised. Why the hell would they venture into Beyond Meat? Unless they actually see value. That's true. Yeah, they're trying to recover from their
either that or it's a food company who just wants to increase their market share in the food industry as a whole.
Yeah.
What do they sell? Food.
Chicken. Yeah.
Food.
Meat.
Not just meat. They sell a lot of stuff. They sell a lot of different foods to a lot of different people. Yeah.
I thought Tyson was just like.
It's mostly meat, but I mean every company is going to sell odds and ends here and there.
That's true. Yeah, diversifying.
And I mean that's common business strategies, diversifying. So what would Tyson do to control their food supply and demand and
their corner in the market?
Yeah, they want to. Invest in other areas. It makes sense to go into Beyond. Tyson is huge.
They're ginormous.
Does it say how much they invested into Beyond?
They were if Bill Gates was in there, they may have been first or second investment.
I mean, like
so it doesn't say how much they did in the initial kind of venture capital funding, but actually Tyson Foods purchased a 5% stake in Beyond Meat in 2016. It sold its 6.5% stake and exited the investment in April 2019 ahead of company's IPO.
Well, that might be because Tyson is... Oh, they could be restructuring.
Ahead of the IPO.
Yeah.
Isn't Tyson a publicly traded company?
Yeah, it is.
Well, so I mean, when maybe Tyson was speculating, thinking that Beyond Meat was going to enter the market at X price, but probably dip. Because that's traditionally what we see with most IPOs, which is what you said perfectly in the text when we were talking earlier today, that this is just the IPO season. You could not be more correct because the market is just so freaking it's not even a healthy market, quote unquote, because we technically haven't had any recessions.
Yeah.
But this is just an absurdly crazy bull market that these companies are getting so ballsy. Like we saw Chewy enter the market, and Chewy sells like your little freaking granola bars. That's the shit we grew up with. I don't even know if today's generation eats Chewy bars anymore. But Chewy decided to go in, and then we saw like what, a 60% market growth from opening IPO. That's insane.
It's the year of the IPO, man.
It is.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's just gonna. You have a company. You want to raise some money.
Go on the market.
Go public. That's it.
Hey, you can open up at $5. I guarantee you'll go up to $50 just because of how good the market is.
You can simply just say that your company the stock is going to be evaluated at a $10 market. Market price, and just assume like, hey, we're worth $1 billion, and then open it like $100 billion for some reason.
So
it's the year of the IPO.
Chewy isn't the granola bar company.
Oh no! I thought they were. I thought they had the Chewy bars and stuff.
No. This is different. The Chewy we're talking about is actually, it's a pet food company. Convenient online destination for pet friends everywhere. So it might be like an online retailer for pet stuff.
Chewy Inc.
Is that the company that's the one that went public, right?
Now I'll explain the picture of the dog.
You know what? You're right. I mean, even so, it doesn't change the fact that 2019 is the year of the IPO.
Oh yeah.
Well, what's it? Sarkis mentioned earlier today about Slack.
Yeah. It's a pet food.
I saw Slack.
Yeah, Slack just did an IPO.
Was supposed to open at $26. Opened at like $36 instead. Or something.
Do you know why though? Do you know why?
Tell me.
They would not allow them to enter the market with a low price.
What?
Yes, there was intervention apparently.
By who?
You know, that's the one part that I didn't look into, so that is actually pretty bad on me. But I was reading it earlier today. I didn't see by who. But Slack had an intervention by another party, some internal affairs, saying that they couldn't enter the market with as low as an IPO as they were because apparently it was some valuation issue. Regardless, Slack still made a shit ton of money, so it doesn't matter.
I'm sure.
Slack still went into the market and just walked out with millions of dollars.
Well, I'll be honest. It's a company that most people have never heard of, and it ends its first day in trading with an evaluation of $20 billion.
I'll be honest. I don't know what Slack does. I don't even know what kind of company it is.
I know about Slack. So it's basically think like Discord, but for business people. It actually was used in some of our business classes. I know my cousin who took who was a management major. He had to use it for his class. Had to.
Yeah.
As part of the actual curriculum. You get to like share files on there. You like make group messages with your teammates and all that.
Oh, okay.
It's more of like a professional version of like Discord, basically. If Discord is aimed at gamers, Slack is aimed at like professionals and business people.
So then tell me, how is this company valued at $20 billion after the first day of trading? What is it exactly that this company is worth that they have? What do they have over Discord or Telegram or Skype or?
I can answer that, even not knowing Slack. Why some companies are overvalued, or quote unquote overvalued, but are probably correctly valued, or maybe a little over. It's because there's also this analysis. So what you're thinking is technical analysis, right? You're looking at raw numbers, raw data, and that's the exact same way I used to look at it 2 years ago.
No, it's everything.
But you have to look at fundamental, right? Slack might actually have some like internal business dealings with maybe some major corporations and companies that do any type of like private investing and private utilization. So Slack, although, and like many other companies, although their market cap is really high, is because there's a lot of backdoor things that we're not really seeing actively move on the market that they're doing with other private companies. Because keep in mind, what we're seeing on the market, their market cap is cumulative of everything. Partnerships, private contracts, public contracts, everything. So when we look at private contracts, we don't necessarily always see those because sometimes it can be so small, sometimes it can be so large, but it's with a private company that we don't really see it move on the market. You know what I mean? So like when Slack was private, they probably had a lot of contracts in the private sector before they decided to go public. They're carrying over all that value.
I wonder what it is Slack was doing then that made them worth, or made them value at an estimated $20 billion. That's a lot. That's not a small figure.
I've seen looking through this Fortune article.
4chan?
4chan.
Oh, I was like, what the hell are you doing on 4chan?
4chan. This 4chan article. No.
Yeah, I was like,
this 4chan
geez,
article. So Slack is apparently used by, in the article it says 600,000 companies and organizations. So it's fairly widely adopted.
So those must have been a lot of their private contracts, a lot of their private utilization with smaller businesses or even mid-cap businesses. But even then, my last company, when I was working with, for that sales company.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should say names. I'm just not going to say them just in case.
Sure.
I don't want to. Sure. I don't want to be liable for anything market sort. Well, people figure it out. They figure it out. It doesn't matter. But the last company we used Zoom. So among the managers and the district managers and sometimes the regional managers, we would do Zoom, which I don't know if you guys know what it is, but you can stream things on there. There's multiple little panels on the screen. And so the people who are giving this presentation, they can throw things into your device on another panel so that you can see what they're demoing. Right. And at the same time, they might use another panel to show you statistics or a distribution channel. On another one, they might show you a list of people who are online and as well as a chat menu. So there's a lot of two-way interaction going on. So I'm kind of curious with Zoom, or with Slack, are they looking at Zoom as a major competitor? Because Zoom, I believe, is private. So that's still going to be an impact on the market, but it seems like Slack kind of has the market shares over Zoom. Because I haven't seen anyone else use Zoom except for that last company.
I gotta say, these are both companies I'm unfamiliar with, but I know that there's a lot of companies that delve into technology, not technology, software development that has to do with presentation and information transfer and just sort of ways to consume information and there's a lot of these companies out there. There can't just be one competitor. If it's about communication, there's a lot of companies that have been around for a very long time. There's websites dedicated to connecting people. There's platforms like PowerPoint that have been around for ages for you to present your information, and it's so simple and so cheap and has been around and for so long it's become a staple, Yeah. So it's got this company, whatever it is that they have in this software. I'm unfamiliar with what it is that they do, but whatever form of software or program it is that they have that has to do with communication and the giving out information, it has to be really, really good at what they do. It has to be really extensive. It has to have a lot of easy to access options. It has to be easy to use by everyone. It has to be openly accessible and it has to be cheap. And I don't know a lot about this company, but they have a lot of competition. I can tell you that straight away.
Well, I mean, what I can say is that Slack is coming into an era. Well, actually, this era has been going on for a long time. Ever since America became more service-based economy rather than manufacturing and industrial, a lot of companies who are creating these virtual meetups and virtual meeting spaces, they're going to profit tremendously because of the way that America has shaped their economy. Take a look at what the airline industry is. We commandeer the most airline industry in the entire global sector. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're a service-based economy. And, we see that when a bunch of manufacturing left America. And ever since then, we've been focused. That's why we have higher education. Everyone wants to get the degrees. Even though a lot of people might not be getting the degree we need, they're getting a degree, which is why higher education is just that much more favorable in America right now. We like to think Europeans are thinking the same way, but Europeans still have manufacturing jobs. They still have a balance between the class system where people who are uneducated still have an option of going into manufacturing. But primarily in America, so we were 70% service based. I don't forget the statistic. That was a while ago, but 70%. We're really, really high in service. So financial services, airline services is a huge one. Insurance is 11% of our GDP. Did you know that?
Really?
Holy shit.
11%. Yeah. I just learned about that.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked, but it makes sense. Everyone wants to protect their shit. You don't want to.
Sure.
You don't want to lose your house. Let's look at Texas, right? Who the hell thought Texas was going to get demolished by a hurricane? But climate change, man. It's if you don't believe it's real, you might want to look at some of the states who are getting fucked right now. And
So
I
ask
believe
them how
it's
they're
real.
doing.
You're 10 years behind modern society.
Yeah, you're living in the '90s, man. It's time to grow up, get into the 21st century here.
Yeah.
Might as well call yourself a flat earther.
Well, you know, a lot of
seriously.
people believe about that. So
No,
That's
Jesus.
a joke, man. I don't know.
you know, we like to think those things are jokes, but
But
there are
then
some
there's-
people who believe.
I mean, there's enough.
Those
stupid
people are
in the world.
jokes.
Clowns, right? Clowning on us.
Very.
All right, so there's something else I want to discuss, and it's a pretty hot topic right now, which is Libra. If you guys don't mind.
Yes.
Oh my God, yeah, you guys were talking about it a lot. I had the privilege to read about it last night.
So
I think I
Libra-
share the same concerns.
Libra is
that you
very
do.
interesting because it ties in a couple of things. Libra is the new hot cryptocurrency coming up. And I know everyone's tired of talking about cryptocurrency, but this one's big because it's being developed by Facebook. Now,
Oh yeah.
not many people trust Facebook anymore. Would you?
I wonder why. Let's see. There's a long list.
I don't trust Facebook either, and it turns out neither does Facebook. So, Facebook has created a sort of cryptocurrency that's backed by a lot of people, and
Did
they
Visa get on it, or
a lot of people. I'll
Yeah.
get into that in
no,
a second.
Visa got in on it?
So
Jesus Christ.
this cryptocurrency is interesting because what they're trying to do is create a global currency with a lot of different methods of both storing money in wallets and trading, and not so much trading but spending. They're trying to make it easily accessible and easily usable. They're trying to make it secure, and they're trying to make it so that they don't necessarily improve upon the existing blockchain technology. What they're trying to improve is the accessibility for the everyday person like you and me to be able to incorporate it into our everyday lives. Now, in order to make this happen, there has to be people who control the currency. So say, for instance, you have an issue where, I don't know, some hacker decided to attack the currency and make it so that some of the transactions weren't quite so accurate, so some of the computers gave a wrong command and issued a sort of wrong transaction in the blockchain, and it turns out that it's not accurate. Then you have a fork in the blockchain. This association that Facebook has established has the ability to pause trading, update the currency, fix the fork in the blockchain, correct the issue, and bring it back to status quo and correct these errors. Now,
Okay.
that's the big thing about this association is who are these people? Who's in the association?
Yeah.
Now, in order to be in this association, there's some requirements here. So I'm pulling this off of an article I found on TechCrunch because they've already done a lot of the research, and they've listed a lot of important information that talks about the Libra currency. So Facebook knew people wouldn't trust it wholly to steer the cryptocurrency they use, obviously, and also wanted to help spur adoption. So the social network recruited the founding members of the Libra Association, a not-for-profit which oversees the development of the token, the reserve of real-world assets that it gives value, governance rules of blockchain. If we were controlling it, very few people would want to jump on and make it theirs, says Marcus. I don't know who Marcus is, but it's all right.
The author?
Younger
So-
brother. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's Mark Zuckerberg.
Ah,
younger
gotcha,
brother.
okay. Each founding member paid a minimum of $10 million to join the association
Holy shit.
and optionally become a validator node operator. A validator node operator is essentially the companies that are mining. Essentially the companies that run servers and computers that mine to make these transactions occur, the companies that do these mathematical calculations that allow these transactions to establish a ledger, and when it's verified by 2/3 of the... So Libra is interesting because it doesn't have to be verified by a certain number, it has to be verified by 2/3 of the association, and that's a big deal.
Okay.
Well, and is Facebook they're doing this in the U.S., right? This is not like they're not using European
Yeah.
miners to bring it over.
Well,
to
it's not just Facebook. So let me finish this here.
Mhm, yeah.
I'll get on that in 1 second.
Yeah.
And lastly, to gain one vote in on the Libra Association Council and be entitled to a share, proportionate to their investment, of course, of the dividends from interest earned on the Libra reserve into which users pay fiat currency to receive Libra. So what this means is basically Facebook is not the controlling corporation that rules how Libra is operated. What they are is a single vote among the association, which is a large group of people who have invested large sums of money into Libra to make it work the way it should. Now,
That's
Facebook
such a
is one vote,
weird-
and they're a minor.
Huh.
Now, let me tell you the companies that have decided to join this association.
Yeah.
Some of the names
Sorry.
include MasterCard,
Uber.
PayPal.
Uber joined? Hold on.
All right,
Uber
yeah.
joined?
So there's a list here.
Oh,
Okay, so
come on.
from the payment
Yeah.
section, we have MasterCard, PayPal, PayU, Stripe, Visa. From technology and marketplaces, we have Booking Holdings, eBay, Facebook, Facebook/Calibra, because they're also developing their own wallet.
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Farfetch, Lyft, Mercado Pago, Spotify for some reason, Uber.
Jesus Christ.
From telecommunications, we have Iliad, we have Vodafone. From blockchain, we have Anchorage, Bison Trails. Coinbase is getting in on this.
Oh.
I guess I figured that was going to
Makes sense.
Yeah,
doesn't
that
it?
makes sense. Why wouldn't
From venture capitals, we have Andreessen Horowitz, Breakthrough Initiatives, Rivet Capital, Thrive Capital, Union Square Ventures. And from non-profit, multilateral organizations and academic academic institutions, we have Creative Destruction Lab, Kiva, Mercy Corps, and Women's
Kiva.
World Banking. Kiva.
This is
As in the chocolate marijuana
No.
producer? No?
No.
Okay.
No.
wait. No, this could be the loaning site Kiva, actually. I may actually be mistaken.
You know what though? I will say this, and you two already know that I have been a skeptic when it has come to cryptocurrency, and it's not because it's a cryptocurrency, and it's not because I don't trust it, but it's because there's no history. You and I were just talking about this,
Yeah.
Sarkis, and you coming from a pre-finance background, of course, restructuring into marketing. You understand my skepticism when you're trying to do an analysis and you're like, wow, 1 year of history of most recent trades, and then you have 10 years of constant trading. What the hell is going on? You know, and then you have something like Libra where people are putting money into a pool saying, we're building a cryptocurrency, and now you're like, okay. And what happens, I'm just going to throw this out, what happens if your money just goes gone? Right, Lyft and Uber. See, when you said Uber, that kind of shocked me because they're a recent IPO,
Yeah.
and they're not doing
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Them and Lyft are not doing good, and that's why I'm a little surprised that they're getting onto the Libra board here, because Libra is what in its new stage of finding. Right, they're trying to create it. It's not already created, right? They're creating.
No, they've been
it.
making it for a long time. They're trying to release it sometime soon. There's a lot of companies. So
That's a lot of worry, man. It's a lot
Libra
of worry.
has its own new code.
Uh-huh.
Its own language. It's backed by a lot of big companies. It's
Right.
backed by. I'm trying to find the article right now because I don't have this memorized. But basically, it's backed by a lot of different currencies, standard fiat currencies, and it's
Yeah.
backed by a lot of different investments and bonds and so on. So that this currency will never be so. It won't move up and down like Bitcoin does, where you'll
It'll
see
be
just
more
rapid
consistent,
jumps.
less
It'll be
volatile.
more consistent, but the
More
cool
like a
thing-
stable coin.
Yeah, more like a stable coin, but the cool thing about this is that it's so diversified in different currencies and different sectors of the world, backed by so many different companies that if a single currency, like say the euro, collapses all of a sudden and you have
Yeah.
no idea why, because it's such a small portion of Libra, all they have to do is sell that off and buy a proportionate amount of a different currency to make up for it. Ultimately, you'll find a rise in the value of Libra and a fall in the value of the euro. So
Right.
if you have Libra instead of euro, you just made money. And you made money proportionate to all the other currencies that it consists of as well, like the American dollar or yen or who knows
So
what
they're
else.
just trying to make a more commoditizable currency.
No, they're making it a currency that's, I guess you can say it's easy to prevent it from losing value so rapidly like you would see in the collapse of Bitcoin, like when the bubble popped. It's to prevent something like that from occurring. That they diversify in so many different sectors. You're never going to see it become a $20,000 value like Bitcoin. It's going to be worth somewhere in the ballpark between the US dollar or the euro or somewhere along those lines.
Again, though, I'm incredibly skeptical to how well the execution will be on this, because you're also going to have a lot of backing from international companies. Well, you can't just have U.S. companies.
Oh, you do.
And that's why I mean, are there international companies who are like totally on board with this? Because I would doubt.
There's a huge list of companies here that are already in the association.
Yeah.
And these are we're talking international, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but remember, we're going to need a handful from each continent, right? Each global market, and then within each sub-market, so each sector of industry.
A lot of the companies we did mention are, I believe, mostly U.S. based.
Well, listen, Visa and MasterCard are on board.
That's true.
That's
You know what?
already
That
a big
makes me
step in the
concerned,
right
because I
direction.
use Visa, and if Visa fucks themselves, that's really going to fuck me.
It's not such a big stake by Visa themselves as it is Visa getting a controlling factor in what they believe is the future.
It's $10 billion, right, to enter?
10 million, not billion.
Oh, 10 million. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. You know what? This
so-
whole time I was thinking it was 10 billion. If it's 10 million, that's like
no.
chump change for each of these
No,
companies.
it's chump change for these companies, but the whole point of this is that each of these companies has a small stake of vote
Billion would have been a
in
lot.
what it is on how it's going to work. So there's requirements for you to be on this association. To join the association, you must have a half rack of server space. That's nothing. I can put that in my room. You must have 100 megabits per second or above dedicated internet connection.
Because
Again, that's nothing.
they want you to contribute to the mining process, right?
Yeah. Again, that's nothing.
Okay.
You have to have a full-time site reliability engineer and enterprise-grade security. That's a little bit more than your average consumer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Businesses must hit 2 or 3 thresholds of a $1 billion US dollar market value, or 500 million in customer balances, reach 20 million people a year, and or be recognized as a top 100 industry leader by a group like Interbrand Global or the S&P. Those are the requirements to be part of the association. So it's not for people like you and me. It's for huge companies all over the world.
No, I get that. Yeah, I get that.
So I got a main question is basically this is going to be proof of work. This is not going to be proof of stake or any other sort of process of verification of transactions. Or
that doesn't so much matter to you and me anymore.
Yeah, because it's going to be million-dollar companies. So
No, not because of that. Because that was important in the way that the ledger worked when you and I were running our own computers, running this process in how it pays us, how much money we get for fees and transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Now that these multi-billion-dollar companies are running it, it doesn't so much matter because they have their own stake and their own mining. And what's important is the validation of the ledger, how accurate it is, and how they can prevent false information from accruing, which is that 2/3 vote and the ability to pause transactions, update, fix the fork, and go back to what it was status quo. And that's the important part. So proof of work over proof of stake doesn't matter for you and I anymore, because you and I won't be mining.
See, that also kind of brings back the whole thing of rewinding the blockchain and going back in time with it. That was, I mean, the main reason why Ethereum split up between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic.
Right.
Is that basically the ledger is permanent, it's solid. Once a transaction is made and verified through the system, you can't go back and change it.
Oh yeah, that's still the case.
Yeah.
No,
So-
that's still the case with the updates and the way that it's run. These companies can't just all get together and all of a sudden change the ledger. It's permanent. It'll show that there was a fork.
Well,
It'll show that there was a
Who
pause.
says they can't? What if someone is successfully
written.
able to scam them out or
and
fool them, and then they could just get together, vote to rewind the blockchain and the ledger, and go back and
Because that's not how the technology
see,
works.
but hold on, Sarkis is introducing a very interesting part. An interesting part to this, though, is the whole regulation aspect, right? You just mentioned who is to say you can't do these, right? There's no regulation. Again, that's my biggest concern with it.
The regulation is the association.
I'm talking about the global. I'm talking about government.
right.
Because as much as we don't like government intervention, unfortunately in the U.S. it's a very big part of business.
That's why there is an association. So until there's actually large amounts of governing and correcting on how this stuff works,
Yeah.
and laws to judge everything,
Yeah.
that's what this association is for. There's a huge list of multi-billion-dollar companies who have put some stake into governing how it works, and each one only has a single vote. So as much as you might not trust Facebook, they only have a single vote in a larger group of people who also want things to go their way.
Okay.
Now, the way the technology works is you can't reverse it, just like Bitcoin.
Right.
And they're just mining. They're not doing anything else. They're not running they're not, setting up new code. They're not changing how the software works. They're simply just allowing transactions to happen.
Right.
And the thing about Libra is that it's a lot more efficient than your standard blockchain technology like Bitcoin.
Yeah, right.
Because Bitcoin, I think the site quoted that Bitcoin only does about 7 transactions per second, and Ethereum only does about 15 transactions per second, and Libra can do about 1,000 transactions per second. And that's one of the things with scaling and the way it works, is because it'd be so difficult to track a single transaction and go back into the ledger and really change what it is that you wanted, because so much is happening so quickly that it's not as easy as you make it out to seem, and it's controlled by so many different companies that no one company would allow any other company to do such a thing. It's like a global government. No, it's like a global governing association without the establishment of an actual government.
You know what? Remember, I was
keeping each
talking
other
about
in
that.
check.
Remember, I was talking about that though. That's primarily what my theory in economics was developing, was creating a global market system, not reliant on government. And
that's what this is.
And I mean, that's why I'm happy to hear about it. Again, me being skeptical, me being a cynist, I'm going to have to ask questions. But I'm glad to see we're moving in that direction, because you guys know my whole input with just humans in general. There's just so much human error. Everyone looks at 2008. Everyone looks at the Asian financial crisis. Everyone looks at all these huge market crises we've been running to. And what were they all caused from? Is huge human error. Whether it be mass human greed, or whether it be a lot of backdoor dealings, anything is a huge error. And that's why I'm glad we're moving towards a virtual end, and where businesses are going to get a vote. And of course there's still human greed that would be in there, and a lot of human error. But now we have a more virtual end, where now we have a computer that can correct. We have a computer that can analyze, okay, is something bad going to happen here? Can we auto-correct it now so that we don't crash the market in the future? We'll have a much more stable currency. And remember, I was talking to you, Sarkis, about this, was running 2 AI systems using blockchain technology to maintain 2 identical stock markets. So while it's running, they can match prices, and if one finds a differential in another that the other can correct, they'll both balance it out now, rather than foresee it in the future, so that the market doesn't lead to a crash.
Well, yeah, so that's called redundancy.
Oh, okay. I don't know the term for it. Yeah.
You'll often find that in, say a video editing company who, they make videos for a living. Mm-hmm. They don't want to ever lose the footage that they have saved on their computers. They'll often have 2 drives for the same thing with the same information on there. That's called redundancy, because what happens is... it's a fail-safe. What happens if one drive fails? You still have your information saved on another drive.
Right.
That exists, and that happens often. So, you know what? That would be a decent idea, is create some sort of redundancy in the market, in the way things are tracked and the way things are read. But,
that's the research I'm doing. That's literally what I'm hopefully trying to prove in the future, is that we can have a global market system that's run, well, not primarily by computers, of course, but in conjunction of blockchain technology and humans, so that we can balance out that human error. And then at the same time, having a global market system, now we don't need to worry about these dumbass tariff wars and bullshit trade stuff. Now we can have people who have buyers and sellers. They throw an item onto the market, they have a price for it, and the sellers determine whether or not they want to buy it. The computer will automatically determine whether or not this price is in accordance to scarcity and the level of the resource available on Earth.
Oh yeah, and then the price always opens higher than what it's supposed to be, right?
I hope not. I certainly hope not. See, that's a human error right there, man. But if it did, that'd be concerning. But you know, we just got to get ready for the next era. You know, if we keep all these other currencies and stuff, let's just say mankind makes it into space. I'm just throwing that out there. If we don't inevitably bomb the fuck out of each other and eliminate mankind, let's just say we make it up there, we're gonna need a global market currency of some sort. We're gonna need an electronic currency.
By that point, global won't be enough. You're gonna need something universal.
Right. You get what I mean. Right now, global is universal for us, but once we hit the stars, it'll be literally universal.
You know, this is kind of sidetracking, but you bring me to, you remind me of something. Has there been an IPO this year that's opened under its evaluation target?
Other than Uber and Lyft, who got fucked in the ass?
No, they opened well above their targets and then plummeted after.
Oh, you're saying if they valued under?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Sarkis.
Where's the opener? This year, I don't
think we saw any IPOs go below their opening. Only because the market's so healthy, people are willing to take those.
Why does that happen?
Well, remember I was telling you, we have
such a lack of skepticism in today's massively open market that everyone is willing to just throw their money which way it's going, just to see if they can make a few bucks.
For anyone who's listening who knows what happened in 2008, what Peter just said is the perfect mindset to what really happened in 2008, where people are like, don't worry, I'm going to take out that second mortgage. I'm going to buy that second house. No problem. Or I'm going to refinance and get that no problem. And then 2008 rolls around, you get fucked and you're like, oh man, I lost my house.
How did that happen?
Yeah, whoa, how did that happen? Yeah, and then you get like AIG and all these companies getting fucked because you find out, oh, we were insuring bad loans on purpose for the whole rewind of them defaulting on it. Then we get the money and then we redistribute the money. I mean, right? You see what I'm doing here?
You're right, yeah.
We're going to see a really shitty crash. We're going to really see a shitty crash because people, now it's not mortgages, it's student loans and it's stocks.
Yeah.
And so, as soon as those first student loans default, and all those students are like, holy shit, I can't pay my $100,000 degree on fine arts, you realize you fucked up, and now everyone's just going to chain react, boom, 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 down the hill, you know?
That's what happens when you set your next generation up to fail. You think, I need to make more money, it's all about me, and then all of a sudden you realize you didn't prepare anyone else for the future, and you fuck yourself over.
You know what?
Because you might be good, but no one else is, and you're part of society here.
And that's my biggest remember, this is why I was thinking starting a podcast was a good idea, was because we can help people understand basic finances, basic economics, and how these conversations go. And I don't know if anyone who might be listening understands what we're talking about, but if you actually look at how we're breaking things down, this is what you should be doing. This is what everyone should be doing. When you're thinking about investing in a stock, you should read about the news, right? You shouldn't be like, boy, I got $100, let me just buy Tesla or, a portion of whatever. Right, Apple, because, boy, I know that company.
An Apple Watch.
Exactly. People need to understand how basic finances works. Everyone learns economics in high school. Do you remember economics in high school, Peter? Hold on, let me finish this.
You know what? I gotta say, I don't think I learned economics in high school.
Oh, okay. You know what I remember from it? Supply and demand charts. And you know what that does for the regular, everyday person? Nothing!
Dick.
Doesn't do anything. Because you know what? Yeah, you understand how supply and demand works, but guess what? You're learning technical and theoretical analysis. That shit only makes up 10% of what your analysis really should encompass, which is fundamental. You need to focus on what's in the everyday news because everyone's emotional with their stocks. Everyone's like, oh my god, I lost $500 today. I need to double down, or oh my god, I'm going to leave the market. Everyone's emotional with their money.
So
that's the problem. People need to learn about these basic financial skills.
Since we're talking about emotions and stocks, one of the biggest things, one of the things I really want to discuss, where this is especially a strong topic, is Tesla.
Oh my god!
People are very emotional about Tesla. It's amazing how much people are willing to try and prove a point, and how much people want to show you that they are the way of the future and they're not going to go bankrupt, or that they're doing really well. And I think the most interesting thing about this topic is how much difficulty Wall Street has in evaluating this company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's incredible. Because one person will go as far as saying that they're going to go bankrupt within the next 3 to 4 months, and that their loans are going to default, and that their creditors are going to want them to repay and sell off and liquidate immediately. And others are saying that their 2019 second quarter profits are so strong and that their numbers are the largest they've ever sold before, and that this quarter is the strongest quarter they've ever had, where they averaged, I think their most impressive quarter was the last quarter of 2018, where it said that they sold 90,000 vehicles, and this quarter they're selling significantly more than that, probably close to 100,000 or more vehicles, and that their profits are starting to grow significantly. And the fact that these two completely opposite sides are fighting it out with each other really, really, really shows in the evaluation of the Tesla stock, and how much it's dipped and how much it's gone back up and dipped again and gone back up.
You know
how much it's fluctuated.
You know what though, and this is the thing. I love Elon Musk. I really do. I think he's a great innovator. Had it not been for him, he would not be opening up Tesla and SpaceX and pouring millions and billions of dollars into these companies. So I mean, I'm very grateful for him.
Conquering the subterranean kingdom by
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Under LA.
But you know what? Again, like I said last week, and like I've been saying for years, he's a horrible, horrible CEO. Absolutely terrible CEO.
Yeah. No soft skills whatsoever.
Exactly, and that's the only thing I don't like about him. He's smart, he's innovative, he's gonna really, I believe, he's gonna bring the future. But you know what? He's just so shitty of a business person.
He's not a Steve Jobs, let me go out and do this great keynote with this great presentation and charisma.
Right, exactly.
I think he can't.
I think if they just kept his Twitter private, then things would be a lot more smooth for the company, and you wouldn't think this about him.
You know, primary thing about that, do you guys remember the tweet he sent out about boring that hole through the mountain, saying he was going to build this amazing tunnel and it was going to fix... I was like, dude, do you know how much you're fucking the shareholders right now? Because everyone's going to be like, oh man, by January he's going to bolster the company, he's going to do this, he's going to do it in 2 months, you got it. Buys all that stock, and in January when the promise doesn't come through, it drops like $50. Dude, why? Why are you doing this to us, man? I want to invest in you, but you're not giving me the foundation to invest on.
So it's not even stuff like that. I think it's more so issues with when he tweets out something like funding secured at $420.
Yeah, that was his biggest one.
He has now the SEC went after him for this, and listen, he's been fighting with them ever since, and it's no secret. Everyone knows who's followed Tesla even slightly has heard this, and I think he had no right to go out and tell people that funding is secured at this price.
No.
Misleading investors to this extent was huge.
Okay.
But the biggest deal was that he's publicly telling this to everyone, not just investors, but avid followers of just his regular Twitter who have no idea what it is that they're talking about, and no idea what it is that a stock evaluation is or how to invest or trade. And these people hear that he has secured funding for this multi-billion-dollar company to expand to greater extents,
and they take it for face value.
And
that's
they
the
take
problem.
it for face value. That's the biggest deal. But and then I mean, what if he really did have funding? And what if it really could have happened? What if it actually got to that point and he secured funding? Would the SEC still be going after him for something like this if it really did happen?
You know what though? There is a difference between having transparency with the public and then keeping things private for the sake of maintaining the shareholder value and the shareholder equity. Because it's sensitive information. So even if you secured funding, and I openly say I secured funding, you're artificially affecting the market. Because I, the CEO, am saying, hey, this is going to happen. And, I mean, like I was saying before.
Insider information. And then,
exactly. It's like having insider information and telling your buddy, hey man, we're going to release this X
product into the market, buy our stock right now because we're going to go up.
There's a good
it's a lot of issue.
There's a good example of this that I saw happen, which I don't remember what day it was, but it was sometime this year when stocks were slightly falling, and this was somewhere in the beginning of January, and Trump just went out and said, hey, don't let the stocks dipping scare you. The market is good. You should buy stocks. This is literally Trump for no reason saying, hey, invest in anything. Buy stocks. Invest into these publicly traded companies. Put your money somewhere. Invest and you'll make money. Don't worry. It doesn't matter what it is. This is a healthy, growing economy.
That's very dangerous.
And that day and the next day, the market grew 6.5%. And every single company that I saw that was on the stock market that was being publicly traded by anybody was being artificially inflated by 5 to 6%.
Yeah. And
this is companies that are losing money, companies that are failing, companies that weren't being supported anymore.
Yep.
Increased in value because Trump said so.
Yeah.
Trump has nothing to do with any of them. He just said buy stocks.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what? And this is why, again, you know, politics has such a huge factor in our economy. And I'm really upset about that because, let's face it, you vote either side of the spectrum. I don't care what side you vote on. You're just going to vote another crook in. You're just going to vote another politician in, okay? You don't go into politics because you want to help everyone and, you know, I really care about the people. I would argue like 99% of the politicians who go in are really not looking for the best interest of the people. And you know what? I don't like, I'm not a big fan of this guy who's in. I'm not a big fan of most presidents who are in. I get it. But that's what I don't like is if one of them just says something, the market's going to inflate or deflate according to what they say. That is not okay. And there should be penalties for saying something like that.
I think
Huge,
the
big
state
time.
of our economy really, really shows that it's highly impressionable.
Yes.
Because it's such a bull market, everyone is willing to openly invest for no reason, and no one really cares where the money is going because they're going to constantly make money in this state of market that it becomes so highly impressionable. Trump says invest, you made money all of a sudden.
Right.
Why would you have any reason to doubt him? It doesn't matter how the company's doing. If you made money, who cares?
And you know, in a way, he's not necessarily wrong. You do want to buy on the down. You do want to buy on a downhill slope. I get it. But you know what? Even then, though, for example, I'll go ahead and be open about like a shitty investment I made. I invested in GE. Which, by the way, guys, I don't know if you guys saw it. GE is worth like $20-some now. If I hung on to them, I actually would have made money.
No.
But remember when GE was on the brink of liquidation and GE was on the brink of falling apart? That's when I dumped my stock and I was like, you know what, fuck it. GE's not worth it. I'd rather take back and lose like 20 cents a share than lose my entire $5 a share. But that, you know, the reason I'm bringing that up is because it was that whole era of like speculation. Right? You're looking at a failing company and you think, oh, the economy is so strong, I'm going to go ahead and throw $5 at it. No problem. If it goes up $6, I made 20% on my $5 investment. Good. But it didn't happen. No, it went down to $4.50 and then it went down to $3.50 and I was like shitting bricks thinking, oh my god, I threw $100 into GE. I fucked up. And then went up to $4.50 and I'm like, you know what, I'm out. I'll lose 50 cents a share. It's okay. I almost lost all my money, you know. And $100 might not be much, but you know, when you're a college student, a sophomore, it's a lot of money. You know, I didn't just throw it in there to lose it. I threw it in there to hopefully make a little bit of money, which was, you know, me being younger and stupid, thinking I can somehow make money.
I'm like, put it all on red, man. Just
all on red, and then it lands on black, and you're like, I fucked up.
At least you're not the guy who comes in saying, all on 17 black. I got a 1 in 38 chance. Let's go.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's 36 numbers and a 0 and a 00. I got this.
That's how I was when I invested in GoPro, GE. I had some bad, and Fitbit. I had some bad investments, but I think everyone should. I shouldn't say should, but I think everyone will go through that point where you make that one really terrible investment.
It's a learning opportunity.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It's just to always
comes at a cost, but it is.
Yeah. Well, whenever you invest, never invest an amount where if you lose that money, you're gonna be like in financial devastation. Like you shouldn't go around investing your like
life
savings
yeah,
and then like all of a sudden like your kids aren't going to college because you put all your money in.
Yeah,
So-
not a good idea.
Growing up, I always had a little bit of money saved up and just stored in the bank for when I got older and when I actually needed it, right? And I think my dad supported my idea of trading as I grew up, and so he would supervise my stock trades and decisions that I wanted. So it was
Yeah.
all in his trading account, and I would tell him, "Hey, Dad, I want to do this with this much money and that much money," and he would
Yeah.
sort of consider it, tell me his opinion about it, and if he approved of it, he would sort of, send my trade through on his account. So it's his account, and he does the trading, but it's my money.
Right.
And one year, I think it was around 2009 or 2010, he has his own trading going on, and he trades on margin with quite large sums. And he decided that he, without my permission, saw a really interesting trade proposal
Right.
to invest in Research in Motion, RIM. If you've ever heard of them, they're
Yep.
the company that makes Blackberries.
Yep.
And the
Oh.
moment he told me about them, I freaked out. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? Sell that shit immediately. What are you doing? This is my money. You can't do this. And I got genuinely upset.
I don't blame you.
And
yeah.
I think within like a week, he lost a stupid amount of money. And he told me, yeah, I'm just going to sell it and I'll cover your losses. This isn't your trade. Don't worry about it. I used your money, but I'll make up for it. Don't worry about it because this was a stupid decision on his behalf. And he owned up to it. And I looked at this and I'm like, man, 9 years ago this happened.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this trade, and if he went through with this trade and if he held on to it for longer than he should have, if I didn't go off on him, how much money we would have lost would have been catastrophic.
Oh yeah.
And just looking back on these trades that happened over time where you look at something and you realize this is a stupid decision, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's just, there's like those really deciding moments that you learn from where you see these companies clearly failing and you really have to be careful with where you throw your money because it wasn't a small amount of money he put into there.
Yeah.
It was, I think he had traded, it was about $20,000 of our own money and margin on top.
Oh wow.
And he was getting pretty good
What?
rates with margin, but
Oh
he
my
was
God.
sort of day trading at the time. And
Yeah.
I want to say he was making pretty decent money day trading. It's risky, it's a big time investment, it's a full-time job pretty much, but you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. And he called the loss and moved on from there. Like, he made his money back elsewhere. That wasn't the issue. But seeing stuff like this happen, you really got to learn from it. Research in Motion, the areas where they were investing their money, the time that they were putting into development cost, and they just weren't headed in the right direction. They
Right.
thought the biggest thing for Blackberries was that their phones were really good at getting emails to people who are business oriented so that they can respond quickly, answer quickly, they can get information readily available to you very quickly. And they thought that because we have this email system, because we have the BlackBerry Messenger, which was really good at the time, that they couldn't be beat. They were unstoppable. They didn't need to innovate. They stopped
Right.
innovating. And then along came the iPhone with a really easy to use platform where emails are just a touch on the phone where you can scroll up and down easily, and you're constantly getting push notifications constantly telling you emails that you get every minute, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
BlackBerry fell behind very quickly and they just couldn't keep up. Research in Motions ended up moving into different technology. I think they do something like security-based technologies right now, but they're nowhere near what they used
Yeah,
to be 10 years
that
ago.
makes sense because if I remember correctly, you actually, I don't believe they allow you to have an iPhone. Maybe that's changed recently. If you're the president, you have to use a secured BlackBerry. They have like a special customized BlackBerry phone that you have to use.
BlackBerry.
If you're certain members of like the government who have like access to like you're the president or you're the Secretary of State and you have like sensitive information.
I didn't
So,
know that. That's pretty interesting.
BlackBerry has only made a very small number of phones in the last 10 years, and none of
Yeah.
which are nearly as secure or advanced as your iPhone or Android
Really?
equivalent. Yeah. No, BlackBerry, they mostly focus
That might
on...
have changed because I'm thinking back to like 2000, I want to say 2010-ish, like the Barack
It's very
Obama
possible.
administration.
It's very possible that 9-10 years ago they could have had something like this, and I don't doubt you, because BlackBerry phones back in the day were very secure.
Yeah.
They're very advanced for what they were compared to other phones at the time, when the common phone was just a flip phone with, what was it, 12 buttons or something.
Yeah.
But it's not so much the case anymore. They probably have their own secure phones that are different scale at this point now, and
That's fair.
everything probably runs on a VPN, and everything is a lot more secure than your old school 10-year-old BlackBerry phone with a full keyboard and a scroll ball in the middle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those were the good old days of crappy ass phones that we thought were like absolutely amazing.
By the way, sorry if you're going to say something, I don't want to cut you off because I'm going to move to a different subject. Or slightly something we touched on before. Kind of wanted to go back to Bitcoin and mining, actually.
Sure.
One of the kind of theories, this is talking with a former professor of mine, and then just kind of, you know how you said there was a death spiral that was going on where it was too expensive to mine for the rewards you got, so it wouldn't make any financial sense to continue mining.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things in the meeting before that wasn't recorded for a podcast, so it was just us talking, you mentioned how it was the Bitmain that made the new Antminer that was even more efficient and even more energy efficient than any of the previous models. That actually that's kind of like a working theory that we have going currently, is that basically miners will find solutions to the to the cost of mining. They will find more efficient and more cost-effective methods of mining.
The AI will?
Well, no. The actual developers.
Oh, the developers.
Development
Oh, okay. At first I thought you were talking about AI, and I was a little
No, the
confused.
developers of the technology will find, because there's demand for it. There's demand for more efficient and more cost-efficient miners out there. So they'll develop the technology in order to have those profitable miners.
Do you mind if I explain what it is that you're talking about?
Yeah.
So, to anyone who doesn't understand what it is that we're referencing, is there's a thing called the death spiral, where something is produced to maintain something that makes money to make something that's produced, and it's a continuous circle. So you have miners, people running computers, which create mathematical computations to create the transactions that keep Bitcoin alive. They essentially mine to make a ledger, make a transaction happen, so that people keep spending money and sending through Bitcoin to continuously generate transactions for miners to mine. And anytime a miner runs their computer, you have two things. You have the amount of money that they're earning and the amount of money that they're spending. Spending comes from cost of electricity, cost of technology that they use to run it, and the amount that they earn comes from transactions and fees, so on, that they're earning for mining. Now, it turns out that for a period of time, Bitcoin reached a sort of death spiral where it cost more to mine than the amount of money that they were earning from Bitcoin. So my question was, why would anyone mine if Bitcoin has entered a sort of death spiral where it's impossible to come out of? It's too expensive to mine and not profitable enough to continue to mine.
You know what though? I remember exactly when you were talking to me about this. Do you remember? It was like two years ago when you stopped mining.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why some people might stay in, and this is why theoretical economics comes in great hand, because it really tells you a lot about price theory and the idea of a supply and demand curve. Even when you get into that death spiral, which, keep in mind, this can occur outside of Bitcoin, this can occur in any market that becomes overly expensive and people start pulling out. The reason why some people might want to stay in is because you're going to look at a supply and demand curve, right? And they intersect, and at the intersecting point, that's the optimal production / consumption point where price is going to be at equilibrium with the demand and supply, right? Now, price is going to increase, right? And not on the supplier's pricing end, it's going to be on the supplier's consumption end. Therefore, supply is going to go down. As a result, demand is probably going to stay the same, right? Let's just say it stays unadjusted because the cost doesn't translate to the consumer.
Sure.
Supply is going to reduce, right?
at some point, that equilibrium is going to hit again for the few companies and firms that stay in it, that they're going to reach equilibrium as soon as other firms start leaving. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as supply starts dwindling and the quantity supplied reduces, at some point the quantity and supply is going to reach a point of equilibrium. And once it does, the firms that remained in it will regain that point in position of profitability at the expense of incurring that X amount of time of loss of profit. So it just depends on how big you were. For you were probably small miner compared to like major businesses.
Relatively.
Right. So, I mean, for you, leaving the market was the smarter decision because it was like, look, you're incurring the loss, I need to leave. But for a firm that maybe had a bit more capital investment, meaning they can take the loss, they probably weathered down, they sat through the storm, and as soon as more people left the firm in the market, the supply and demand curve reached equilibrium in which they can still maintain the company, maybe not at a profitable rate, but at a rate that kept them in the market.
That does make sense, because that is a topic that I covered at a certain point where smaller miners like you and I would probably leave.
Right.
Bigger miners who, like for instance, the Genesis mining farm, the largest GPU mining farm in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, was able to maintain and continue mining as is.
Right.
And the amount that they mine significantly outproduces anything that I did. I was a relatively insignificant factor in a much larger mining pool that included a lot of other people more than just myself,
Yeah.
I was a very small percentage, so people like me, we couldn't survive to continue to mine, especially when new technologies are coming out, new graphics cards, new ASIC miners, new methods of mining, new coins to mine, new pools with less fees or more efficient methods of paying out their miners were established, and so it really, really made a difference. The thing that didn't make a difference was how you mine or where you mine, because ultimately it all boiled down to the same thing. The thing that really made a difference was not even so much efficiency of the individual miners, which made a difference for the smaller miners like you and I.
Right.
My miners, I would make a big deal out of a couple percent efficiency here and there because it would make me a few extra bucks. But was exactly what you're talking about, capital, is whether you can bear the storm. And that was my concept at first, which was I would have generated enough Bitcoin by a certain point in time that I would have earned so much money to pay off the electricity over a certain period of time, to continue to run my miners, to reinvest into newer miners, and buy new technology and continue to maintain the status quo of reinvesting into expansion. And literally my concept was never to take out any money for myself. I just wanted my mining operation to grow.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
You're doing internal consumption.
Exactly. And it didn't work out so well because of hitting a death spiral and my lack of capital and funds and lack of innovation, and I don't have my own research and development team. I'm simply buying someone else's ASIC miners. And it didn't work out so well. And I think that even these not fully developed softwares like Bitcoin and Ethereum still had huge potential. A lot of people didn't so much see eye to eye, which is why they wanted to start their own, like Libra. Now, they could have backed stuff like Ethereum and Bitcoin and any off-brand coin, and they chose not to, and that's sort of what created chaos in the industry. And a lot of coins failed, and a lot didn't. And it's really hard to judge where Libra will go, even though it's backed by so many different big companies. Bitcoin has just hit 11K. It's just sub 11K right now. People are mining it again like crazy. You have, just like you talked about, Bitmain made a mining ASIC machine that's, I think it was about 6 or 7 times the efficiency of the old machine. The old machine that I'm referencing is probably the S9 generation. You have the Antminer S9 where they're producing, which was estimated 13.5 to 14 terahash of computational power for every 1.35 kilowatt hours of power consumed. Now, whatever you consider, there's a way to calculate that efficiency, whatever percentage. Right now, it's significantly increased. It's 1.2 kilowatt hours with 54 terahash. That's huge, considering the fact that difficulty is constantly increased. but the price is not so much different than it was a year and a half to 2 years ago. We were at this $11,000 point not so long ago when people had half the efficiency, a third the efficiency, less.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much it's driven technologies to develop, but what's to say that that's sustainable, that can be consistent?
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's not a forever thing that these technologies will continue to increase at the rate of efficiency that they do right now. I'm forgetting the name of the person who named this type of effect, but it was said that processing power would double every 2 to 3 years or so, and it would happen over a long enough period of time. But over the last 5 to 10 years, that's decreased significantly. Right now, Intel and AMD would love if their processing power could get doubled with the next generation of tech.
yeah.
And it's just not so much the case anymore. That
Well,
Intel and
Moore's
AMD, Moore's Law,
Yeah.
that's the one. And Intel and AMD are really struggling to get an extra 5 to 10% out of their next generation processor, when really it's not the speed of which it used to increase.
Yeah.
We're hitting a wall here.
Well,
So-
you know why we're hitting that wall, and we live in the good old state of California, right? We live in the state where taxes is
Good is relative.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, good is very relative.
Very, very well.
But you know what, right? We live in a state that's not really. I guess I shouldn't say it's completely non-business friendly, but it's not as business friendly as we would like it to be. And the problem is that those costs, those taxes, those penalties that we charge on these major companies, they're not going to translate it from their consumer. It's just going to go down to a pricing level. Yeah, it's just going to go down to a pricing level. So at some point, these companies are going to be penalized to the point where they can't do R&D as much as they would like to. Intel, AMD. I don't know where those companies are stationed. I'm hoping they're not California. But even if they're not in California, the federal government, you have a lot of people who want to lobby for these penalties on the 1%, or and of the 1% businesses, right, major corporations, they want to penalize them. Problem is, though, when you do that, they're going to pull from R&D. They're going to translate those prices to the consumer. You're going to see a chain reaction of very variable expenses across the board. And then as taxes go up for the general populace, and the cost of living goes up, and the price of consumer goods goes up, I mean, where can we start buying these goods?
What you're going to see, what you're describing,
chain reaction.
What you're describing is the business equivalent of an implosion.
Yes, exactly.
Something exploding and falling in on itself.
That's taxes, baby.
Yeah, that's taxes.
That is taxes.
California is going to be the death of its own consumer society.
Well, and that's the problem. You would think that in the state that likes entrepreneurialism and that had the Silicon Valley and had all these innovators,
No way. The
you'd
state
want
is
to
trying to
continue
support bums with no money and people with no lives who refuse to work, and that's the biggest issue. The state is trying to support people who having gender crises when really we should be concerned about the working class and people like you and I and how we can make a living to feed our own families, And these non-issues are becoming so relevant that we're dealing with things we've never dealt with before, and we don't know how to deal with it, and it's fucking stupid.
And I mean, for me personally, I mean, when it comes to social policy, I think, just let people do what they want to do. I don't mind. I don't care. You know what? If you want to do whatever you want to do, you do it. The problem is though, when the whole population is focused on it and only on that and nothing else, that's when it's a bit of an issue. I'm okay if you want to take positions on social policy. No problem. I'm not okay if you're only focusing on social policy and zero fiscal policy. Because, yeah, you achieve all these social greatness. Yeah, you built this egalitarian society that you've been aiming for. But now we're all poor and now we don't have an economic system. How do we survive? You created egalitarianism but with no chance of survival for the people who now want to contribute to society.
If you're discussing politics and policy, I wanna mention the issue that Trump is running this government like a business. And it's not a business. We have things to take care of and things to worry about that are outside of business policies and politics. And this trade war is long overdue, sure, but it's interesting the perspective that he takes on it. Now, I'm not saying which side I voted for or which side I approve of or who's right and who's wrong. I'm just saying that the government isn't a business, and there's a lot to deal with outside of making money, and this trade war seems to be all he's focused on, and
It's costly.
Yeah, it's costly.
The trade war that he is building against and for the U.S. is equivalent to a nuclear bomb. And we are pretty much destroying and crushing any type of trade allegiance we had with various sectors and industries. It's such a detrimental thing right now. It's really unfortunate, too, that we declared it with China, of all places to declare it with. Like, had it been against the EU, I think we would be more okay.
I mean,
because the EU is kind of falling apart. But China, dude, China. I mean, dude, we have so much stuff going on there. We have so much manufacturing that we moved over there, and then he decides, let's just fuck with them. And I get it, it's long overdue, but there's a lot more of a finesse we could have done with it, rather than just blatantly saying, here's some tariffs, go fuck yourself, good luck. Like, no, you can't say that on the international community. You know, you can't just put up your middle finger and just hope people listen to you. It's not really how negotiation works, you know?
So
it's unfortunate.
The U.S., this is one of the other things I wanted to talk about, which was that the United States has added more companies to its entity list. The entity list is the list of companies that it bars businesses in America from doing business with. And among this list includes more companies that mostly seem to be tech companies that have any sort of military aspect or possibility. One of which has a lot to do with supercomputers, which I don't know what it has to do with military, but the U.S. seems to be freaking out over security concerns and protocols to do with I don't know, security, that they seem to be blacklisting a major list of companies that, you know, may or may not have dealt with the Chinese government, and there's really no proof of any of this. The biggest concern was Huawei, but Huawei is old news at this point. There's a lot of other companies that the U.S. has blacklisted. One of the companies, I don't remember their name, it's some Chinese name. They're a subsidiary of AMD who uses AMD's own processor designs to develop Chinese processors for supercomputers in China. And the U.S. deems that they have some sort of merit or value for anything military related and have blacklisted them along with a small list of other companies. And the list is ever growing, but that's an issue because who's AMD? AMD is not just a straight Chinese company. A lot of the computers in American households have AMD processors. Your next generation game consoles are going to have AMD processors. AMD is a huge company, and they have a lot of different businesses and a lot of different ventures in a lot of different places. This is one of their subsidiaries are getting hit and blacklisted outright from doing business with the with anything in America. It's crazy to what extent this has gone.
Yeah, and I mean, what's most unfortunate is, you have a president that claims that he wants to do things in the best interest of America only, but these policies are inadvertently or advertently affecting American business, and that's what's most interesting. Is that platform of, we gotta reinforce and make America great, but I'm going to penalize American businesses by interfering in the international global market.
Yep.
That's really not good. Really not good. And I mean, talk about, again, a guy who comes from a business background who's super unprofessional. And this is a prime example, is on an international spectrum. He just does not get his message across in an appropriate manner.
I think he should really be penalized in some way for lack of unprofessionalism.
Oh no, I agree. Absolutely.
There's a lot of things he's good at, there's a lot of things he's bad at, but professionalism is not one of his strong suits, and that needs to be emphasized, and he seems to lack that as a whole.
And being a president,
being a president, I would argue, is like 90% professionalism. You are literally
yeah.
the face of the company. Just don't be a fuck up, and there you go. You win. There you go. Let Congress pass the laws, and you just sit there like, la-di-da-di, I'm in charge of the U.S. That's all you do, you know? You just stay in your own lane, you know?
I think it's interesting that you just referenced the U.S. as a company. You just said that he's the face of the company.
Oh, well, I guess in a way I am referencing it to a company, so
Well,
there you have
I
it,
mean,
ladies and gents.
Your idea is not wrong. He is the face of the United States, but professionalism is something that needs to be upheld. That's something that he generally lacks.
It's like what Dwight said, you know, why put yourself as the face of the company if for someone who's never cut the face off of anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So I do think that I don't know, it's crazy. Huawei, the second largest phone manufacturer in the world, is currently fighting back in U.S. courts to be unbanned, get taken off the entity list, and it's ridiculous that they have gone to such an extent to prove them to themselves and the world and the United States and to Trump that they're not a problem, that they're not doing business with the U.S. government. I mean, with the Chinese government.
Yeah.
But you know, all these people without basis, without any sort of actual facts or evidence that they're willing to openly disclose, like what basis is it that Huawei was banned?
Yeah.
I mean, no one in the European Union found anything, but they were banned from a lot of different countries from doing business.
Yeah.
Same thing in the United States. We banned them, but on no basis.
Yeah.
It's sort of all speculation whether or not they're actually doing anything like spying or any of the other claims that the U.S. government has made.
Yeah.
There was something about finding a back door, which was actually just a security flaw that then Huawei later patched to close it. But then people complained that it was still a security flaw that Huawei could have used as a backdoor to spying, which honestly that backdoor didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And then other companies openly admitted to having backdoors similar because it's not so much a security flaw as it is the ability to control the software and fix things and update stuff, and they have to be able to roll out certain tech, so there has to be ways for companies to communicate with their users, you know.
Yeah.
How else would you send a security update to a phone if that phone is totally secured and you have no idea that it is there, you know?
Yeah, and you know what, that right there, my main issue with that whole thing, the fact that Huawei has to go through this whole process, is our whole judicial system is based off of the whole idea of innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yeah.
When you just blacklist a company, just like get the fuck out of here with no basis.
Yeah, they were never given a chance.
They were given zero chance to be like, no, it was just a business problem. No, it was just a software error. No, it was just a basic business problem. No, they were just like, you're blacklisted. Congratulations. No one in the U.S. is going to do business with you.
Yeah.
Huge fuck up. Especially when, you know, you want to come from a country that wants to lead by example and wants to be like this huge purveyor of, hey, independence and all this stuff, but yet we like completely shit on another company like that. That's really fucked up, you know? Like, we could at least give them the chance to at least come forward and be like, you know, why did you do this? What happened? And instead we just shat on them and was like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You're totally right. Huawei never got the opportunity of innocent until proven guilty.
No.
It was more like guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
They were blacklisted and now have to fight in court to get unblacklisted. And, you know, this is on no basis of grounds. And, you know, sure, Trump says it's in the name of...
American security and all that
security.
stuff. Yeah.
In the name of security. What is all this bullshit? This has been going on for 20 years now. In the name of security, you are to give up your rights and as a citizen.
That sounds like some World War II pre-World War II Germany shit right there.
Yeah,
where,
exactly.
hey, for the sovereignty of our nation, we're going to need you to give up some of those rights you used to have and maybe some of those monies and...
Hey, listen, you had passports here. We're going to need to confiscate those because if you leave our city, we can't protect you. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's like Nazi Germany type stuff. The U.S. government needs to get their shit together.
And you know what? And again, it's not just Trump. It's not just any type of party in particular. It's just general politics in America.
The world needs to get their shit together.
Yeah, the world just needs to understand. Look, we can't have a repeat of let's take away people's rights and limit them so that we can protect them. That type of shit. Because guess what? You're a human, I'm a human, we both have human error. You're going to fuck up, I'm going to fuck up. If you're in charge and you fuck up, but I'm under you, we're all gonna fuck up.
And what's to say that this entity list isn't the start of another global war? I mean, we're in the midst of a trade war. What's to say that this trade war won't escalate?
Actually, I'm curious. Does the entity list include any companies? At least the new additions. Does it include any companies with Iran? Connections to Iran? Because
because of the recent.
Not that I know of.
Tensions with them.
Yeah, you're right.
And we're
Iran is not a major
cracking down on that.
global
I don't think they're a
powerhouse.
producer.
They're not a producer. Yeah,
They're a raw material distributor.
whatever businesses there might be, Iran is irrelevant in the trade war. To be honest,
You know, though, I gotta say, one thing I'm most impressed about this last week was after the damages of both of our petroleum ships. And the Dutch ship and the Japanese ship that got damaged. And we don't know who did it, but a lot of people are pointing fingers at Iran. Whatever the case, I'm just surprised gas prices didn't go up.
Yeah.
They went down. Did you guys see
that's
that?
true. Yeah,
I did see that.
I noticed that.
I was very
I was
happy.
like, that's kind of odd because I thought that would go up, but
Yeah.
it did not.
Coming from a Los Angeles commuter, I'm incredibly grateful, and I
Yeah.
drive a Jeep, so even more am I grateful.
More.
Oh yeah, I already spend a lot of money on
More
gas.
than
Like
that.
10 cents makes a difference for my car. So,
Those Tesla vehicles are starting to look a little more convincing now, aren't they?
oh, I'm telling you, dude.
More and more every day.
Well, I guess not when
Electronic cars
prices
got
are
it.
falling, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you just wait for the market to crash and then you buy all your consumer goods then, because
Hey,
the prices.
you
will
ever
turn.
see gas going to dip? Just stock up as much as you can. Store it in your garage and hope it doesn't evaporate until when the prices go up.
Or just buy futures. Just buy some
Yeah.
futures, hang on to them.
Just
wait
buy
for
a
them.
whole tankard,
You know, I think I've said this before. Futures were the death of crypto.
Really?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
and futures is what caused the bubble, what caused the crash of cryptocurrency, what caused everything to plummet so severely, so quickly.
Like you can buy futures of
Whoa.
crypto.
Oh yeah, the establishment of futures in general on cryptocurrencies is what caused it to crash so significantly.
I had no idea cryptos had futures.
Yeah.
Ad features, yeah.
That's why. What's the purpose? Futures are primarily used for like consumer goods and raw materials because the prices are variable. Why the fuck would you ever do that to a highly variable currency?
I asked the same thing, but some people in New York decided that Wall Street should establish
Futures.
trading and futures with crypto, and then wanted to involve themselves in such a manner that didn't make sense.
Talk about roulette right there.
Yeah.
That right there is roulette.
They shot themselves in
You
the
might
foot.
as well go to Vegas, put $1,000 down on the table, like, good luck, I hope I win. Like,
They shot themselves in the foot, hoping that something other than blood would come out of it. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but that was 100% the death of what happened to cryptocurrency in
yeah, because
in
now you got
2018.
people
I mean,
buying
even
currencies,
that
buying
fall-
futures.
Even that fall in cryptocurrency, that was just a cycle that's been going on since the creation of cryptocurrency. There's been multiple boom bust cycles. It's just been that was the most dramatic
Right.
version we've seen so far.
I want to say the thing about cryptocurrency that's most important is the lack of understanding of what it really is. And,
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation with my dad back in 2013, and this was senior year of high school. I was a couple months from graduating, and the conversation went as follows. I pretty much came up to my dad and said, "Hey, I have some money to invest. I want to put some money into a Bitcoin mining machine in 2012. And I told him what Bitcoin was. I told him it's a virtual currency. And I told him the way it works is by mining it. You mine to make calculations happen. These calculations do a whole number of things. There's a ledger that keeps track of everything. And there are fees which are incurred when you make transactions occur. And these fees go to the people mining, and that's how you make your money. You
Right.
invest into a computer that earns money off of fees." Now in 2012, it was estimated that my $1,000 computer can earn about $300 a month in Bitcoin. Now $300 a month in Bitcoin, when Bitcoin was worth about $1.50,
No.
is a lot of
A
Bitcoin.
lot of money.
Now you have to consider that I already had an investment strategy prepared where I was going to buy a brand new computer in 4 to 5 months' time
Yeah.
with about double what I invested into a second computer and a third computer and so on, and keep reinvesting into expansion into a Bitcoin mining farm in 2012. And my father told me, yeah, I think what you're telling me is a load of horse shit, and this currency is bullshit, and it's not backed by anything, so it doesn't make sense. There's no government organizing or anything, laws to do with this. You're going to lose all of your money. Don't fuck around with this. And I told him, but I'm not fucking around. All I'm doing is buying a computer. So worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. I sell my computer for 2/3 of what I paid for it. I lose $200 or $300 and call it a day. Or listen, I just got a new computer. I upgraded. What's
That's
wrong with
true.
computers?
Yeah.
In 2012,
Just get a
everyone.
video game or something.
Yeah.
In 2012, name me a person who didn't have a computer. This is 2012. It's a modern society.
Yeah, that's
So this
true.
isn't so much an investment as it is just buying a new toy for the house.
Yeah, just
my
buy a
plan-
consumer good.
Yeah, and I was planning on buying it, sticking it in the corner, running it, and calling it a day, and forgetting about it until 3 months later. I've calculated the point where I'd be. I'd be just as broke as I am now, but I'd have a multi-million-dollar farm warehouse with hundreds of thousands of computers calculating. And it's as simple as a little conversation that I had with my dad that said, nah, you're an idiot. No government is backing this. There's no laws on this. You're going to lose all your money. This isn't real. This is bullshit. That's not really money.
Well,
Forget about it.
it's the same thing I was talking to
a lack
Sarkis
of
about
understanding.
earlier. Was in December I bought $500 worth of Bitcoin, and I was like, I'm gonna just see what happens. And then in March I sold. Once it hit that $8,000 point, I was like, yep, I'm gonna get rid of it. Like, I don't see it going any higher. Fucking hit 10,000.
Yeah.
Then 11,000. I just sat here like I am the biggest fucking clown for not just holding on. But I didn't think it was gonna go up. That was my honest opinion. It's just I agree with your dad. At the time I was just like, there's no regulation. I have no analysis or history on it. I just don't know where it could go. I might as well take my 200% growth and then walk away.
I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. This is literally end of 2012, beginning of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
This is around the time of the holidays. It's somewhere like, it wasn't like a one-day thing. I was like discussing this with him over a month or so.
Right.
And it was like December to January, and it was literally just his lack of understanding of what it really was and how it worked that he decided that it didn't make sense because there's no history on this. How do you evaluate something that has never existed before?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is a fair evaluation on his thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, for anyone listening, when it comes to any type of analysis, if you have like 1 year or 2 year worth of history and you think that's a lot, that's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, but
everything
okay.
travels in the law of 72 and the law of 7-year growth. When you're looking at anything under 7 years, it's very hard to take a proper analysis before something.
Sure, but I'm talking to a man who owned his own tech store, who was selling cell phones to the public, who was selling iPhones that never existed until 2008. Why all of a sudden people wanted them, and every person in every household all of a sudden needed to have a smartphone in their pocket,
Right.
which didn't exist until 2008, only a couple of years prior to that. He was a tech man himself. Like, he's not sitting around programming things, but he's selling tech. He's in the world that clearly sees not catastrophic, just massive growth, constant change, And he saw that when he later closed his cell phone store at the end of that year, that he realized he couldn't compete with the way that these companies were changing and the way that they were establishing themselves, and it didn't make sense to operate anymore. And there was constant change undergoing this, and he didn't see the fact that maybe society or his money or currency could change as a whole. There was more things changing than just the technology in his pocket, or the way he lived his life.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, those are two different things, though. I mean, I get his speculation, though. Like, investing and running a business, I mean, it's two different things.
So he was born in the 60s.
Yeah.
He's not a young man who
Right.
grew up only spending cash, learned how to use checks, and then learned how to use credit cards.
Right.
Now that you're using a little piece of plastic in your pocket, you swipe and all of a sudden it charges a virtual bank account with a number somewhere.
Right.
You should be able to understand that, there's more forms of currency than just paper money. Paper money is old school. It's out of date. The entire industry, the entire world as a whole is trying to move away from paper money.
Yeah, but I mean, older generations will always have speculations of some sort for something. I mean, I don't think his belief was irrational. A lot of different people in his generation thought the exact same thing.
It's it's interesting. It's sometimes it's hard to accept change that's like not quite as global until the global economy shoves it down your throat, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're seeing our generation enact a lot of change within our own societies, and everything's going to be always changing.
Hey, man.
And you either have to get on board with the change, or you have to get off ship and.
Hey, listen, two or 3 weeks ago, I didn't like Beyond Meat as a company because I thought that all they had was a recipe and lacked everything else until their prices had skyrocketed and their valuation was massive, and I realized that the company maybe had some worth.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting.
Oop, shoot! Dropped a seed from a cherry.
All right. So there is actually one last thing I wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about tech this entire time, and
that's true. We haven't really ventured into any industry.
I know I love me some tech, and this is more along the same lines. Is Intel versus AMD?
Oh, yeah.
All right, you mentioned this.
Yeah. So AMD has been striking back hard against Intel and competitors at NVIDIA with the graphics side, where they've been producing some really competitive parts recently, really competitive CPUs and GPUs that have finally hit the market at a price point that people can afford with a performance ratio that makes sense to buy their products.
Right.
The new Ryzen 3000 series looks really promising. The new GPUs that they're coming out with are actually, workhorses that do really well for what they're worth, and it's hard to ignore them now, because before you could just only look at Team Blue, Intel, and just say, which Intel CPU am I going to put in my next computer? Now you really have to consider which company you're going to go with now because of how competitive they become. And I wanted to mention that I've been following closely with their new product release lineup soon, and they announced the new Ryzen 3800X, which comes in it's a CPU which comes in at the $400 price mark, competing directly with Intel's i9-9900K, which is a $450 price mark. And it's shown that now it's hard to speculate how accurate these benchmarks are and to what extent they're accurate, because every kind of workload is different from the next. Some workloads are multi-threaded, other workloads aren't. Some workloads are dependent on a million different things like RAM or storage and so on. So it's really hard to pinpoint how accurate these benchmarks are before they really release the CPUs where users can go out and test them themselves. But it's shown that the 3800X in single-threaded performance is outperformed by the 9900K by only 1%, but outperforms the 9900K multi-threaded workloads by 5%, considering that it's $50 less is a significant enough margin that it puts AMD above the rest. And Intel really saw this as a threat and has announced a 10 to 15% price cut on all of their competing CPUs. And so that puts the 9900K at roughly the same price point as a 3800X, and that's a big deal because for the first time AMD is competing and fighting back, and it's interesting to see where they're headed. And this is gonna push for innovation, and I think this is should be an interesting battle between the two companies.
I mean, competition always incites more innovation, regardless, because you always want to do better than your competitor. I mean, I think that's one thing really good about like a free trade enterprise-based economy, aka capitalism, is you have companies that are going to be participating in this huge market, and they're going to have a ton of competitors, and they're going to think, all right, how can I differentiate? How can I achieve low cost? And how can I really set myself apart from the competition? And I mean, just speaking, okay, obviously, two of us are business people here. One's an engineer, right? I mean, a lot of us here at the table are going to be very free marketed. And when you look at societies like, let's look at World War II USSR, let's look at Cuba, let's look at these nations that didn't really utilize
capitalistic ideas, they didn't really do very good. And there's kind of a reason for that. You know, when you incite competition, when you have companies that fight against one another, you get all these new innovations. Silicon Valley in California, prime example. You have all this new technology, and you're like, I want to get on it. And now you got all this competition. Now you got to think, okay, how am I going to be better than the other? And why did we have that 10-year spike of just mass innovation in computer technology? It's because of competition. And AMD and Intel are going to be no exclusion to that. They're going to bring us the next best shit.
It's not just Intel and AMD. Over on the graphics side of things, AMD and NVIDIA are fighting it out too.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
NVIDIA has gotten a lot of heat for their recent naming scheme of the consumer grade GPUs that they've come out with.
What, the Titan?
No. So they went from the 980 series and the 970 series to the 1080 and 1070 to the 2080 and 2070 and 2060. And they kind of skipped a lot of numbers between the 20. And they got a lot of heat for the marketing department that came up with these names. So they came out with the 2080 Ti, which was the top tier consumer card, just below the Titan series, and the Quadro series. And they had the 2080 Ti, 2080, 2070, 2060. And whatever cards below that. And
why did they do
I don't know. They had to. They didn't.
Sarkis, you're a marketing guy. Does that sound like a good idea?
Then after this,
no, it does not.
Now after this, they thought that they're coming out with new graphics cards, and it's not quite as powerful as the 20 series, but it's more powerful than the 10 series. But it's closer to the 20 series than the 10 series, so they came out with the 16 series. So they came out with the 1660 and the 1660 Ti, and that is actually the explanation they gave for the 16 series. They never gave an explanation for the 20 series, but they did for the 16.
You know what? I'm no
it gets better.
Major. I'm no marketing major. Sarkis, I'm sure, could testify. That just doesn't sound like a good move.
That doesn't sound like a good move to anyone. Listen, I'm not a marketing major.
Rubbing my fucking brow and eyes because why?
I'm not a marketing major, but that's fucking retarded.
Yeah, I am, and that's fucking retarded.
Yeah, why don't you just continue going up the lines?
So get this, they decided, they need to compete with AMD. AMD's coming out with some really good stuff soon.
Okay.
They need to compete. So they need to do some price cuts, they need to come out with something better. They decided to bin certain parts so that they could, have more competitive things against AMD's new graphics card lineup. So they're coming out with the 2080 Super Series, and the 2080 Ti Super, and the 2070 Super.
It was already, I'm not gonna lie, it was already complicated enough introducing the Ti series. Why the fuck do we need Super and Super Ti? No. What the hell?
I'm not talking about complication. I'm talking about some child was like, yeah, these graphics cards are better. Let's call them the Super Duper cards. And so some dude in video was like, yeah, that's a freaking great idea. Let's call this the 2080 Ti Super. Oh yeah.
God. I feel like we're working for a Nintendo
that's about
company.
Man, this is one of those things where some tech companies don't really know how to with naming conventions and branding. What was it? The USB naming conventions that were really up?
Yeah. Oh, that's the best.
That's
after Gen 2 they went to Gen 3, Gen 3 by 1, then Gen 3 by 2, then Gen 3 by 2.2, then Gen 3 by 2.2, and Gen what was it? I can't even remember because it's so fucking stupid. There's so many
there's no consistency.
Yeah.
It confuses consumers.
You know what? And you know what? This is a great opportunity for me to mention this because I talk to this about everyone. STEM or STEAM, whichever you want, if you want to incorporate arts into that whole mix.
No.
All right. Regardless, there's a huge war on that. But regardless, at the end of the day, those everything, right? There's a reason why business is not in that little acronym. You know why? It's because it's the business that builds that acronym. Right? The soft skills that gives you the financing, the soft skills that builds the business. Again, going back to Elon Musk, right? Lack of soft skills, excellent hard skills. Horrible CEO, great engineer. Right? How do we put a business person as a CEO and Elon Musk maybe as the COO or as a lead engineer? Dude, that company would be an A+ company, skyrocketed.
Intel's
Yeah.
most powerful CPU right now that they sold was called the Intel i9-9990K. They really must like nines.
Why the hell are they? Yeah. Oh my God.
Why?
Jesus.
No one fucking knows. I don't know.
We
It's
need,
at
we
the top
need more.
of the naming
We need
scene.
more business people in these companies here.
No,
to
you
work
need
on the
more people with fucking
consumer.
logic.
Bro.
Yeah, the i9-9990K.
That actually kind of concerned, like, I don't know, it's a small thing to be concerned about naming conventions, but like,
Naming convention.
well, it does kind of concern me if no one ever, did anyone at any point kind of turn around and say, you know,
This is a bad idea.
Apparently not.
this branding, these names, they're
They're fucking
not that
stupid.
great. Yeah, they're fucking stupid.
Yeah, apparently not.
Like how that kind of indicates that there might be there's too much cohesion in the way people think, and there's not a lot of diversity in ideas, which is not good if that exists. Again, it's a small subject that kind of blowing it up to apply to a whole company, but it's not a good indicator.
It
No.
makes sense though. I mean, naming something does have an impact on brand value.
Of course.
And that type. I mean, let's take a look at the Prius, right? We all live in California. When we see a
Yeah.
Prius driver, what do we initially think?
Oh,
It's an
Prius.
awful driver. Yeah. Oh my God, it's a Prius. They're a horrible driver. And you know that's what the Prius name has successfully built itself on. And as much as whether or not they wanted to achieve that, that's what they built on.
You know, I never thought I would have to give praise to companies that name their products correctly, and really give trash talk to the companies that failed to do so. But
Yeah.
companies like, I don't know, Google with the Pixel with an actual name, or
Yeah.
Apple with a fucking iMac Pro, like at least it's a fucking normal name.
Yeah.
God
Simple
damn,
and
these
easy.
fucking companies that have hundreds of millions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars invested into research to develop semiconductors to perform millions, billions of trillions of calculations per second, can't come up with a fucking normal ass name.
Hey, it's like I was saying. There's not enough Sarkises, like marketing majors in there who are like, "Hey, let's appeal to the consumers a little more." They're like, "No, let's put a bunch of numbers together. Maybe throw in a letter."
Follow and like, oh man,
Incredible, just incredible.
it's purely. So, I would say that this would probably be the conclusion of the first episode of the FD Investment Podcast.
Yeah, I think this is a good trial run. You
Yeah.
know, we I think it definitely went a little longer than we were hoping for. So I think the next couple ones might be a little shorter.
Yeah.
But this is a good.
It's a good first run, you
phase
know. We'll be refining this and kind of it'll get better as we do more of these, of course. We're gonna work on it and.
Hey, you know what? If anyone has any suggestions of topics they want to cover, anything that's striking their mind and that they really want to consider, I'd love to hear it. Get some suggestions.
See, and going back to what I was saying before, you know, the whole purpose of having a podcast like this is we want people to be better rounded, better educated on the realms of finances and economics. At least on my end, you know, I would argue a lot of people don't understand how basic finance, basic economics works. And, you know, we should strive to really change that. You know, you want to save for your retirement, you want to make sure you live a comfortable life. You should know the ways to achieve that, and I think if we create that two-way communication, we can hopefully create that environment for progressive communication and debates and discussions, you know, not where we're arguing with one another, but where we can just sit down, break it down, and see what it really looks like from the inside, you know, so... Let's get those comments in. Let's get those.
Yeah, I
two-way
mean,
communication.
I'm interested in a lot of the topics you guys will bring up and kind of hopefully get some comments and see what sort of other ideas are out there, other opinions. So I think that'll be the end of the episode. We're gonna sign off here.
Here's to financial decapitation.
Here's the financial decapitation.
Decapitation.
Which, by the way, that's what the FD stands for.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Till next week.
Bye bye.
Next week. Bye.